2019 and 2020. His company won the Best Team Building Provider at the HR Vendor of the Year Award 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, a friendly reminder to our moderator and also the panelists. The timekeeper will produce twice bell sound to inform you that only 10 minutes left to wrap up your session. Without any further delay, over to you, Ms. Fairuz. Ladies and gentlemen, innovation to the rescue.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back. And welcome back, Mr. Prasad. And we begin at about 2:52, so we end at for lebih kurang like that. Yeah. Innovation to the rescue. And what exactly is innovation? Let's begin with that and the definition of innovation. How do you even assess innovation? Is the breakdown of an aero train, and then the aero train in Malaysia, which results in people having to take the bus to the terminal and innovation gone wrong. MRT constant breakdowns and innovation gone wrong. Serious layoffs at tech company, is it fatigue of an innovation? Conglomerates, monopolies, curtailing competition, is that good innovation? These are some of the topics I think we need to try and dissect. And what exactly is innovation that is useful for humanity in this time and age? With us, as you have now heard, four very distinguished panelists. I won't repeat their names, but the order of the panel for the day is each one. Someone asked me this afternoon, why do each one of them need to present about 10 minutes and not for the moderator to just ask the question? As this is the last session, I just want to take like 30 seconds to explain the format. Usually in a panel session, moderators are taught that if the skill sets are all somewhat similar, therefore if they are all CEOs or CFOs, then it's easy to just do the format as the moderator just asks a set of questions because they know the subject matter. The skill sets of the panelists are somewhat different. You allow each of the panelists to present the case on the subject matter, so the moderator will then know how to gear the questions towards each of the panelists. So hence why this panel, I suggested to ADFIM, the panels that I moderate, we provide a time for each of the panelists to present their case on a subject matter. On that note, each of the panelists will be given up to 12 minutes, not 12 seconds, 12 minutes to present a case, upon which I'll pose some questions for you to think about until the rest of the panelists have done their presentations. Should we begin with you, Major? You can sit here, go there. It's your 10 minutes. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, okay. Please, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good afternoon. Imagine you wake up, the morning newspaper, this is the headline. And if you belong to this organization, how would you feel? Frustration, humiliation, disappointment. I was part of this organization for 14 years. We were responsible for a mega project, 6 billion ringgit in total. 16 July 2005. In less than 1 year, we transformed that project. Again in newspaper, a success story. A new generation petrol vessel, successfully delivered, currently protecting the maritime interests of our country at Straits of Malacca and South China Sea. So in the next 9 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you what were the transformational, innovative approaches that enable a mega failed project to be successful. But let us take a bit of time to explore what it means by innovation. Of course, it's as simple as Googling, yeah? You will get it. But what I like to take a moment to share here is executing creative ideas. Execution. In another word, knowing is not innovation. Knowing means your Wi-Fi is working. Information is so easily available now. But what matters is execution. To add value to the right stakeholders. For example, if you are giving loan to farmers, the stakeholder or key stakeholder is the farmer. If the loan is not helping the farmer to be a better in terms of socio-economic, though you meet your KPI for loan, it may not necessary an execution. Think about it. And last but not, the next is interdependent. You can sit in a big, fantastic lab and come out with innovative solutions. You may get award. You may graduate from MIT. But if the solution is for a layman, a technician, a school dropout, a farmer who didn't go to school, if they cannot relate to it, that may not be an innovation. Because innovation is always an interdependent activity. And one last thing that I like to emphasize here is business, technology, artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, etc., etc. No matter how high the technology, if it cannot get the human factors right, innovation won't work. Because end of the day, ultimately, it's about human. My company spends hundreds of millions for the shipbuilding project. It's a public knowledge. So when I read Michael Beer's article on great training robbery, in 2016, from Harvard Business School, he produced a report, Great Training Robbery. Meaning, many of you who are signing the check as a CEO, as a president, as a minister of human resource, we are all involved in that robbery. Me, as a trainer, as the owner of a training company. It's quite embarrassing, right? Robbery. And it's from Harvard Business School. What he says is, more than 80% of investment in learning, it's a waste. Let me emphasize further that Association of Talent Development, they produced a report called Missing Link in Learning. Why? Because when it comes to innovation, a lot of companies spend money on sending people for training, investing on technology, getting consultants. But what matters is the ability to apply. And research consistently is telling we are acquiring knowledge. Knowing is not learning. If I may translate in Bahasa Melayu, ilmu tanpa amal sia-sia. For the benefit of our friends, knowing without applying is a waste. And trillions of dollars are daily wasted, or rather yearly wasted, according to research. And what can we do differently? I'm a farmer. My part-time job is teaching. Full-time job is gardening. Training is like a seed. But we are not putting the seed for the seed. We are planting the seed for the fruits of flower. But after planting the seed of training, many organizations don't have budget or resources or people involved to fertilize, to water, to pull the weeds. Thus, trillions of dollars worth of training investment die as dry seed. Amy Edmondson, professor from Harvard Business School, says, organization need fertile soil for seeds of training to grow. And one dimension for innovation that I like to emphasize is what Amy called psychological safety. Imagine you send people for training, you bring consultants, blah, 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 but they are not having the voice. Especially when they are young, junior people. Sometimes, especially in a country like us, where the element of psychological safety, allow me to read, a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Imagine you are having a board meeting, a Tan Sri or Dato or whoever, the high-profile people are doing something wrong. Generally, in our culture, where power distance is very high, very unlikely we will stop them. That is a major problem for innovation. Innovation won't work if people don't have the opportunity to express. And some of you may be able to Google for Aristotle Project by Google in 2012. Google found the essence of building a team of high performers is what is known as psychological safety. About a few weeks ago, my son sent me this slide while attending his lecture from a London Business School. For a wrong reason, Malaysian name was highlighted. Sorry if it's not very clear. This is a hierarchy of power distance from Hofstede. Some of you have been to organizational behavior courses. Hofstede, a Dutch psychologist, came out with a list of power distance. High power distance, low power distance. Embarrassingly, he said, we make feature for the wrong reason. Malaysia is among the highest in terms of power distance. What it means? If someone is a very high person, let's say a Tan Sri, a Dato, or CEO, whatever he says, people may tend to say yes. That is a significant problem for psychological safety and for innovation to grow. I had the privilege in the army, in the United States. There's a center for CALL, we call that Center for Army Lesson Learned. From the project that we failed and later successful, we have captured a few key lessons. What we call as after action review. And from that, we had the privilege of being invited by the Royal Navy of Oman to conduct training on project risk. Let me just, in Lima and a couple of other things. But one thing that I would like to emphasize is, if you want innovation to execute in a form of project, what it says is, because of poor project management skill, for every $1 billion worth of project, 11.4%, $114 million are wasted, according to Project Management Institute's Pulse of Profession 2020. This number alone will justify for CEOs to pay attention to competency building. Don't leave it to HR department. 11.4%. My friends, if you want to drive a bus, you need driving license. If you want to be a kindergarten teacher, you need teaching license. But do you realize many people drive national projects, international projects, mega projects without any form of project management training? Aren't we surprised for this much of wastages? Imagine driving a bus you need driving license. But to drive national project, any Tom, Dick and Harry can talk about it, including in parliament. That is a mega failure. Innovation won't work if the person who leading it don't have the right competency, but more importantly, they are not even aware that they don't have the competency. This is what we call unconscious incompetence. If you don't know what you don't know, how do you know that you don't know? If I may say in bahasa Melayu, kalau kita tak tahu apa yang kita tak tahu, bagaimana kita tahu yang kita tak tahu? Especially in a high power distance country like us, the person with the title YB, Tan Sri, Dato, etc., can get away with unconscious incompetence. We call them accidental project managers. So if a project or innovation is managed by accidental project managers, having accident is not surprise. Unfortunately, that is causing a major challenge to the national development. A rich country like us, we shouldn't be struggling for food. Do you know that we are not even self-sufficient for rice? We are talking about big data, artificial intelligence, and so on. That is something that we need to explore. So my suggestion is, if you want innovation to work, we can invest on technology. However, the person who runs it must have the right competency. And no matter how high the technology, my friends, the human factor, Amy Edmondson called that psychological safety. What does it mean? When it comes to innovation, ideas, knowledge, it's not by those who have titles. Sometimes we can learn from the most junior person. We call that reverse mentoring. Sometimes we can learn from the housekeeping person about cleanliness. Technicians, operators, sometimes they know better than CEOs and engineers because they have been dealing with it. Our parents can teach us economic better than professors sometimes because they don't spend future earnings because there's no such thing as credit card. Many of us spend our future earnings while having big academic qualification. So all my wish list is be aware that knowledge without action is wastefulness. Action without knowledge is foolishness. Imam Al-Ghazali. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Thank you. Jay, you want to take a seat? Thanks, that was really good. Yeah. So just some prompter questions for you to think about, Major, while Encik Zamir speaks. Before Encik Zamir stands up to speak. What's your definition of innovation? Okay. What necessitates innovation? And then what kind of skills that you spoke about training quite a bit. The need for training is assessed in how do we, you say there's a lot wasted on training. So how does companies and individuals assess need for learning and continual learning if that is seen as training? And then how do we assess the impactfulness of training? I'll come back to you at the end. Yeah, for you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Firoz. Shall I start? Okay. It's a bit tough for me to reach the energy levels that Major has been shown. If you don't mind, I'll just remain seated. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Zamir. We have been introduced before. I'm in charge of a company called Innovim. I founded the company 10 years ago. And we've gone through a lot of, as a company, we've gone through a lot of ups and downs. We talk about innovation to the rescue, right? This is a topic that we have today. And the innovation to the rescue means it starts with something bad happening. So everyone has been affected by the pandemic. So this creates a scenario or creates a business landscape that's not easy. That's not easy, that requires innovation to go through and to survive from it. So there was a panelist yesterday who said that the pandemic wasn't really a crisis. It was also an opportunity to change how we operate, how we try to improve ourselves. In a way, I have to agree with that. It gives us an opportunity to think about how can we do things better, how can we do things in a more efficient way. So the pandemic crisis came and we saw massive uptake in investments. We are in a finance session. So the theme or the flavor is all about investments and things like that, right? So we saw huge investments in digital solutions, in new ways of working. People had to be forced to work from home and things like that. So people were forced to innovate. So innovation to the rescue actually is all about creativity and how can we go through all these things, trying to make the best that we can. Unfortunately for me, innovation cannot come without the sustainable approach, without innovating sustainably. When I talk about sustainability, it's not just about climate change. It's not just about, reducing carbon and things like that. Sustainability is something that can be implemented in the long term. So we saw a significant increase in investments, but now, like Tan Sri Azhar mentioned yesterday as well, reality bites. So you're seeing massive layoffs, thousands and thousands of people being laid off at Google, at Microsoft, at Twitter. Maybe that's for another reason, but so many.
Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom as well. So you see massive amounts of layoffs. So this showed that people were trying to be innovative, trying to create new technologies and things like that. But it wasn't sustainable. Hence why we're having the impact from all those things. And from me, when reality bites, this is where innovation is no longer the question. Everyone is forced to innovate. Everyone has to be creative in finding new ways of working. So, the business landscape is changing now. Pandemic is past. COVID pandemic has passed us. We're still trying to find a new way of working, a normal way, new normal. Well, that's what people are calling it. But other things have now come into play. Sustainability and climate change. This is the sustainability that everyone talks about. We're talking about Gen Zs. Are there any Gen Zs in this room today? Oh, okay, got one or two. Okay, I wish I was younger as well. Right. So Gen Zs, these are digital natives. They are born in this world with iPads, with iPhones in their hands already. So these are people that businesses need to realize that the next generation workforce would be people who have been that what people are calling digital natives, right? And if we don't change, if businesses don't change, then there's going to be trouble as well. The other thing would be, disruption in technology. So these three factors are changing the business landscapes, whether we like it or not, whether we are ready, whether we are not ready, and things like that. Now, innovation is a given. How can we handle these new changing landscapes in business? How can we be creative in what we do? And for me, the pandemic showed micro levels of innovation. Every single company, for their survival, they need to change something. So for me, this is change or innovation at a micro level. My company, we had to change significantly the way we work. We saw our sales, being slashed significantly, projects being cancelled, and so on and so forth. So how can we still be sustainable? How can we still be alive and kicking after all those things, right? So what we saw was innovation at the micro level. Every single company, they had to change whether they like it or not. But now, when the business landscape has changed, I don't think that innovation at the micro level is sufficient anymore. We are talking at a forum where there's finance people at, development finance institutions. So we're talking about what would be the agenda for our country, right? How can Malaysia, improve our economic processes as well? And for me, the innovation has to come at a macro level, at the national level. So for example, right, whenever me as an SME, we're always looking for, the latest technologies, what sort of services that we can provide. But ultimately, if the demand is not there, then I don't need to get financing, first of all. So the DFIs will not have new business and things like that. So at a macro level, at the national level, if we can have innovation in terms of our policies, enforcing or encouraging, encouraging GLCs, for example, or government agencies to change their needs and their way of work. We have the National Economic Blueprint, My Digital Economic Blueprint. It's an awesome blueprint. But again, that was under the previous administration. I don't know if the current administration is applying that. But it talks about digitalization, it talks about improvements at government agencies in terms of, human capital and things like that. But you have that, but at the same time, the procurement process is still old school, I should say, in the best way to explain it. It's still old school. The procurement process takes a long time. Of course, tendering is very important. Of course, I'm not saying we should be giving out things, directly, but how can the procurement process be improved as well? Is there a demand for change in the way that government agencies operate or GLCs operate? They have massive amounts of requirements for efficiency improvements and things like that. Can this be trickled down, be creating opportunities for more and more companies to come in? So at macro level, you've got the GLCs or the government agencies wanting to change, wanting to have new things. So you then can provide companies like Innovim, like my company, and other tech companies. There are so many awesome and brilliant technology companies in Malaysia. There is really a tremendous amount of talent. There's no need. We can be, Major talked about, rice not being self-sufficient in Malaysia, right? Technology, we are self-sufficient. There's so many technology companies with brilliant minds available that can provide whatever that's necessary for our GLCs, for our government agencies to change. So that's where, when we have more demand, we have better supply of technology. That's when DFIs can increase their business as well. That's where DFIs can come in to fund all these projects. Right, I was talking to one of the participants today. What sort of projects? Any government projects? Okay. So it has to be government projects, right? It cannot be a private project. So if we have more demand from the government and government link agencies, government link companies, GLCs, and then the supply is readily available, so we can immediately create a full ecosystem of innovative companies, an innovative ecosystem from the demand side to the supply side to the finance side. And this will immediately create new job opportunities. It will create more FDIs. It will create more investment into the country as well. And we have a lot more potential employment. Our human capital will also increase. Universities will then follow suit and produce much better graduates. So it becomes like a chain reaction. And for me, micro level innovation is already a thing of the past. It's now how can we innovate as a country, and how can we all work together to achieve a much better economic conditions for our nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. Just a few trigger points. At macro level, when you innovate at macro level, you mentioned there needs to be a demand. To have the demand, you need to first understand you need something. So how do we ensure understanding at the top level? And then, when we do trigger innovation in certain areas, specifically, say take financial institution, for instance, you then trigger unemployment. Another problem, by easing one area with innovation and technology, you could potentially outdo certain jobs, which you and I were doing. So how do we deal with that? If we start addressing innovation at a macro level 2, we need to address potential unemployment. How do we then retrain these people, the cost of retraining? And how do you, in your view, reconcile these issues? Number 2, you speak of Gen Z. Innovation is always associated with the young Gen Z upcoming. But in an organization that requires loyalty for sustainability, when I say loyalty, not loyalty in the Hofstede manner, where not to the top person, but commitment to staying, because for sustainability. Gen Z, or the younger crowd, is often seen to be a crowd that job hops. So that they don't feel the need to stay in a job for way too long. So how do you innovate for sustainability of a business without shortchanging the business with loyalty? Number 3, there is an increase in aging population everywhere, Malaysia included. How do you see innovation in this age group, aging population, baby boomers? This morning, George spoke about rural, the poor. What sort of innovation do you see in these areas? Thank you very much. Fahmi, over to you.
A very good afternoon to everyone. And special thanks to the organizers, Secretary General Atfini and Atfin. Louder? Yeah, this is fine. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, speaking about innovation in a broader sense, so we have been touching base on innovation, especially in the biomedical industry. But it is not only restricted to that, of course. So speaking about the COVID, the last experience that we had in the past 3 years, especially, innovation, how it showed itself, it came into play as mission-based innovation, like the invention of the vaccine, and then incremental and enhancement-based innovation, like the communications innovation that we had, and also the precautions in terms of restricting the mobility of people. And afterwards, there is innovation in terms of anticipation, of course, anticipatory innovation. So how do we predict the future? What kind of innovation do we need coming up? That is, of course, based on intuition and also predicting the future. So which is the hardest part, which I believe. So innovation in any industry, no matter what, it could be in the biomedical industry, in the agriculture industry, in the finance industry, or even in the transportation industry, it is requiring financing, of course. So myself being a representative of the finance industry, I've been rather restricting my presentation here with the financial innovation. So the innovation in finance actually goes hand in hand and also co-evolves with the technological innovation. Because whatever innovation and technology there is, I mean, it requires financing, of course. And the financial industry, being under the pressure of evolution and also trying to coexist, of course, also is part of an adaptive market hypothesis, which is actually a phenomena also explained by Merton, where all the institutions, the financial institutions, they have a going concern. And what we mean with that is that we foresee that all those institutions are going to exist for a foreseeable future. But that might not be the case, because in terms of adaptive market hypothesis, we assume that all the institutions are trying to exist for the foreseeable future through innovation, competition, and of course, other aspirations. Now, coming back to the financial industry here, we say that the innovation in finance, it has several practical applications. So first of them is communication. The second one is computation. So with communication, we mean that the transmission of financial information for the benefit of the institution. So maybe one of the best examples is that the transmission of financial information. I mean, if we divide the era of financial innovation into the early 1900s, so the Nathan Rothschild, for example, he was owning a big banking dynasty in Europe, and he has benefited from the outcome of the British Napoleon War just ahead of everyone through a network of pigeons. That is what is being written, of course. And he managed to acquire a big chunk of government bonds.
Sorry, what was the name again?
Nathan Rothschild. Yes, Rothschild, the Rothschild family. So that is one aspect of financial information, mainly the communication aspect, the transmission of the financial information. So the other one is computation, that is to transferring the financial information. Security, it is the protection of the financial information. And commercial use, it is the application of it. And also the accessibility. And also the cost, of course, the price of the information. So these are the components of financial information. Now, as I said, the matter of financial information is kind of a natural selection. So organizations, they might not be aware that innovation is required. So it is a matter of setting up the strategy for the very, very core of the going concerns of the organizations. Now, within our age, we see that the innovation is, in the financial industry, it is mostly either disruptive innovation or it is sustainable innovation, as the gentleman has just put it. So we have seen that the disruptive or the create, or in other words, it is a creative destruction kind of innovation that it is mainly implemented by startup companies nowadays in a digital era. So the startup companies are mainly developing something, innovating something, which is actually replacing the goods and services or the products of the much larger companies. So the large companies, like the ones like Google, Amazon, what they've been doing is they rather try to sustain the innovation, the product that they have, but there's also a threat coming from the startups with disruptive innovation. Now the startup, and all these big companies, large companies, they used to be small companies, of course, in the past. Now, within the last digital era, we see that the company as a startup is starting with an idea, like a fintech. At this stage, the company is too small to care, so nobody cares about them. Then if the idea has a place in industry, then those companies become large, but they cannot be ignored anymore. So this is the stage where they say that they are too large to ignore. And the last stage would be then the company is becoming too big to fail. That is the last stage. And regulatory risk comes into play when the company is at the last stage, of course. Now, talking about innovation, the regulation is coming actually afterwards, and that is where we have the risk in terms of regulation. Now, for the last couple of years, we have seen that, especially the fintech companies, they have been trying to monetizing the data. So that is the latest trend, because data has become money. And they have been trying to protect their digital identity. So those are the two main aspects that we have seen lately. Now, I mean, I actually was also trying to give a brief about the financial innovation within the last 50 years. Now, we have seen that financial innovation actually started with the academics and in the early 50s. This might be a little bit more on the theoretical side, of course, but there is, of course, an effect that we have seen that the practitioners have taken over the academics and also further developed the innovation in a sense. So in the early 50s, when Markowitz introduced the modern portfolio theory, that was basically based on the information that the risk and variance of asset classes of modern portfolio theory is somehow contributing to the overall innovation of the financial industry. So the capital asset pricing model that came afterwards, where we have been trying to set a appropriate theoretical rate for any asset class with regards to the market portfolio, of course, those developments somehow paved the way for the industry, for the resources to be discharged and given to the professional investors who have been doing prudent investments, of course. I mean, somehow this paved the way for indexing, benchmarking, risk management, hedging, and this also introduced us to new technologies like logarithmic arithmetic trending, the algorithms that we have been seeing lately, quick trading, of course, and this was, of course, introduced pre the digital era, of course. Now, this financial innovation also paved the way for further enhancement in the total markets in the financial industry. Now, looking forward, of course, this is very hard to predict. So, what the future holds in terms of financial innovation. So, it could be lately, of course, the introduction to the blockchain industry technology, which is something that we think that the exchange of financial assets, commodities will take place through those technologies, and maybe another aspirational innovation which may come into place is in terms of the neural networking aspiration that I've recently seen, but that, of course, is something which I don't know thoroughly. And this is pretty much the wrap up that I would like to give.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Femi. Round of applause. A few questions while, yeah. You in the financial industry, you would have come across many sectors who must have reached out to you for financing. In your view, which are the sectors that are lagging in innovation? In innovation, that they could be doing more. And you mentioned a bit about regulation being one of the issues with innovation in some of the financial sectors. But then regulation, how do we regulate something that we don't understand that could potentially cause harm? So number one, we innovate. We need to assess if this thing that we've innovated may or may not be misused and could cause harm. And then how do we move on to the process of regulation? So that's another question. And then going back to, you actually mentioned monopolies and innovation too big to fail. Is there a need to widen the competitive landscape by breaking down monopolies? Do monopolies, like what Mr. Major mentioned, they become big, lazy, huge, and you don't know, I mean, those are not your words, but I'm paraphrasing your presentation. How do you track innovation in huge organizations? And then finally, Malaysia, as you know, introduced 5 digital banking licenses recently, 3 under Conventional Act, and then 2 under Islamic Finance. Your views actually on digital banking and the regulations around that and its effectiveness, that would be useful. And over to you, Jacob.
Right, thank you very much. So we've been hearing quite a bit of views on innovation. So what I thought was, let me do a summary of what they have just presented, okay? So that'll be easier, right? So my thing about innovation is, my background is actually a mechanical engineer. So I run an organization where we design business simulation for organization problems. So when organization have an issue between departments and all that, we put them through a business simulation and let them fight it out in the business simulation. And then depending on what comes out of the business simulation, then we'll address a problem. Nothing comes out, nothing to address, right? So it's a very simple way of approaching things, but it can get into very deep areas in the organization. So one of the questions that was posed by Fairuz to us was that define innovation. Okay, I'm going to give you the definition of innovation. Please write it down. Okay, it's a simple stuff, all right? To me, innovation is just the creation or improvement of anything for the betterment of mankind through ethical process. However, the byproduct of that, okay, if you do it right, the byproduct of that could be a temporary advantage in business. And why I say temporary is because every innovation is until somebody else innovate against you, right? So it's a temporary advantage. Second is you can either create a new market, or third is that you can increase the buying power or the spending power of the customer within that market, okay? But these are byproduct. The main thing is actually about innovation is that the ability for us to be creating something interesting as we go. And in our business, we design business simulation and we are very much offline. So what happened during the pandemic, everything went into Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And how do you run business simulation on that, you know? So it's a totally different world. But I was blessed that our team, we have interesting people. So one thing about innovation is that, do you have interesting people in your organization to innovate? Innovation doesn't work with boring people. Okay? I mean, that's true. Okay, boring people can probably execute the final product and bring it to realization. I think that's also important. But you need people who are interesting, who are willing to explore. Okay, the key word about innovation is that the ability of the team to actually explore and find the next big thing that we want to achieve. Now, why innovation is that? To me, I feel innovation is the way forward because innovation creates vibrance in the organization. An organization that innovates, it's very vibrant. And in fact, sometimes people ask, how do we prepare against disruption? First of all, we don't even know how the disruption is going to come, right? That's why I call it a disruption. And some of this disruption, I don't know where they get their financing from, but they are very heavily financed and they can disrupt and not make a profit at all. And we call them disruption. So to me, I don't call that disruption, okay? Because for me, disruption, business must make money. So the whole idea of burning money is against my traditional mindset of business. Business is supposed to be gaining profit. So sometimes we are going against those people. And to me, what I find is that the only way we could actually withstand disruption is that keep changing the landscape of the business. In other words, keep being unpredictable for the competitors. And an organization that is unpredictable to the competitors is an organization that we don't know what these guys are cooking in their kitchen. And when you know an organization, we don't know what they are cooking in the kitchen, suddenly that organization becomes the focal point of the industry. The industry start looking at them, oh, something these guys are doing and all. So I feel that is something which is very, very important in order for us to actually create an innovation culture in the organization. But the thing is this, innovation, there's two types. I think Zamil brought up the micro, macro bit. I quite agree with that. Now the micro, macro thing is that the micro part is what can be done within that company. I mean, within that departments and all that. These are the micro thing. The macro one is something which is even more important. In the larger scale, that actually has impact. For our development bank, it's all about impact to the country, impact to the industry and all. So micro has its place. And those are the daily improvement. You know, sometimes organizations want to change some processes and all that. These are all happening sporadically. It's happening, okay? I don't think we have much of a problem with that. The problem we actually have is a macro part, because macro part defines the business long-term goal, and it also creates value for the society. And that's where we are really interested. So there's actually a challenge in this entire process of micro or macro innovation. Okay, I'm going to address both, okay? The micro innovation challenge is basically, this is cliche, okay? I'm going to use the cliche word, mindset. But the moment I say mindset, everyone goes, oh, yeah, we have heard that, yeah, mindset. No, not that mindset, okay? One of my good friends is an expert in design thinking. And he gets engaged by organization to do design thinking project. And he said, Jega, you know what's the biggest challenge? It's not the design thinking tool. Prior to the design thinking tool is they come with a fixed outcome of what they want to do. So the whole idea of design thinking is that, if you know, design thinking starts with empathy, and then you define the problem, empathy, and until you prototype the solution. But the problem is, when they come for it, they come with a fixed solution. That is, okay, our solution, we are going to come up with an app to solve this problem. But the thing is, the very fact that you start with that goal-oriented, see, this is the thing, the flip side of innovation is that in order for you to actually allow innovation to happen, you cannot start from being goal-oriented. Paradox, okay? Paradox of innovation is that you cannot start with goal-oriented, because what happens is that, okay, we're going to come up with this app. How do you know the app is going to solve your problem? Why don't we just go on a progressive realization of what the issues are? And at the end of the day, if an app is an answer, then we'll go with an app. But if the app is not the answer, you must have that ability to say, guys, we got to figure out something else. But if the process starts, then we're going to design an app. How do you know? All right. The second one is even more dangerous. Okay. This is from Captain Ariva also, is the biasness. Now, bias, tunnel vision, especially if the company has a cultish attitude. Cultish attitudes are sometimes good, because that also is a form of vibrance, but it can also lead to blind spots. So this is where sometimes we need the team to actually check on one another if their personal biases are coming into the design process itself. But that's all the micro side. Now let's address the macro. Now Zamil brought up the thing about macro, and in macro, it's about how do we change in terms of nation and all, okay? Three blocks to macro innovation. We call it the 3 blood clots for macro innovation. Number 1, I know this is a CEO forum, but number 1 is the CEO themselves, is the major block for innovation. And I'll explain to you why. The second is actually board, block to innovation. Third is, this is for GLCs, state-owned companies, and government agencies, minister. Now I'm going to address all three, and I want to also address how we can actually possibly flip it as well, okay? Now, I said CEO. CEO can actually flip the switch of innovation. They have the power to do that, right? And why sometimes I say CEO becomes a block is because it's a systemic problem. Okay, take for example, you go to a government hospital. Now, government hospital, their motivation is about how fast can I cure you so that you can do the rest of the recovery at home, because the bed has to be available for the next person. Okay, because we have a long waiting list, we need to clear that bed. Private hospitals is another model. It's all about occupancy rate. So the longer you stay, the better it is. So when you compare that to, it's a systemic issue here. So when I say CEOs are the reason for why the innovation sometimes cannot happen is because sometimes, not sometimes, if the CEO has to show numbers at the end of the day in order to guarantee their survival for a contract extension, then how are they going to take that necessary risk to innovate? The system itself fails itself. However, the CEOs that make it are the ones that are either owner CEO, someone like Tony Fernandez, owner CEO, or CEO that has been brought in during a time of crisis because they did not have anything to do, so they rely on that. Or they have confidence that that CEO knows what is he doing. Okay, case in point like Tan Sri Liu. For a couple of years, EcoWorld did not give out dividends, and recently it gave out a dividend. But the thing is, people know who Tan Sri Liu is. He's the one who built SP Setia. So the confidence on that person is actually quite strong in that sense. Okay. Second is board, because if the board does not allow risk-taking from a perspective of innovation, because innovation is risky, guys. Innovation is risky. We have worked on some projects. 3 months after working on the project, we looked at each other and said that, this is one of the most stupidest idea ever. And we just shoved the idea aside. And we put the idea aside, but the thing is this, that process of finding out this is a stupid idea is a growth in the team to find out what's the next breakthrough that they want to achieve. That part is a big culture issue with people. And the last one is actually, I said minister. Now, minister can make or break in an organization. The part about minister is that your development bank, government agencies, state-owned companies and all that, minister's blessing is actually very, very important. Without that, sometimes you cannot move. And getting the buy-in, selling the idea to the minister is actually very, very important. And the ministers are so powerful, they can actually make things happen. I give you another case in point. Malaysian story once again. HRDC, Human Resource Development Corporation, the former CEO, CM Vigneswaran, managed to push through a lot of innovation and transformation within HRDC. something that the previous leaders struggled with, but he managed to get through. And the reason why he managed to get through, and he has given me permission to use this example, is that his minister at that point was Richard Ryat. Richard Ryat actually gave him the leeway to say, you go ahead and do it, I will back you up. And some of the initiative even had to go to Prime Minister at that point, the Najib Razak, and even he gave the backing. And what he did was he managed the ministers and he managed a few board members. Some board members are totally against him. Then he said, I don't need everyone in the board. I just need a few people in the board. And with that, some of the transformation actually can roll out pretty well. So I think that's the thing about micro and macro, and we'll carry on with other discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Actually, really awesome 4 points of view. Brilliant. A few questions here, Jaga. Innovation can sometimes turn into albatross and white elephants. It can become useless, like My Sejahtera is a case in point. It's very useful for a time, and then it became a liability, and etc., etc. And then also, you mentioned CEOs, boards, and ministers. Can I just give you two profile leaders? How would you change? How would you infuse innovation in these two organizations? One is an Elon Musk sort of led organization, where the leader is so switched on innovation, but he has to carry the rest of the organization with him. How does he do that? And then another one where it's also an entrepreneur, could be very set in his ways, with one set of innovation where he's not wanting to innovate, but the rest of the organization is pushing for innovation. How do you convince that leader to change in those two models? And then finally, you actually mentioned the public-private hospital model, which is really good. And currently, the government of Malaysia is applauding Tesla and Amazon Web Series investing into Malaysia. Are we, in your view, when we announce this sort of investments into Malaysia as FDI or any other country for that matter, politicians are obviously announcing from the perspective of FDI, but how do they assess the usefulness of that by way of it enhancing the society? Okay, we'll come back to Major for his, and then we'll go through and open the floor to questions. You want to you want to answer the questions I put you through? Yeah, the questions I put through to you. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Fairoz. The question that Fairoz asked me was, what is innovation? I mean, of course, we can Google, we can look at, the key point that I like to all of us to remember is how are we adding value to the stakeholders? And for me, since we are in the financial industries, one of the most innovative person I had the privilege of meeting personally on the 17th August 2018 is Prof. Muhammad Yunus from the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. For me, if he meets the creator and what you do with all the knowledge that you have from economics, he has something to say. Millions of farmers and poor women entrepreneurs especially, their life was transformed. There were even beggars who don't meet the criteria for any business. He gave them microcredits and they became entrepreneurs. These are evidence. And I had the privilege of teaching in Bangladesh later. one of the staff who worked for Prof. Yunus really shared his life experience. So innovation is the ability to solve problem and add value and make an impact. Many of us are privileged people with education, with network, with opportunities. A couple of weeks ago, I read, for funeral, mandi jenazah in Kelantan, there were people who are struggling for water. And here we are talking about Tesla, space, etc., etc. Innovation is ability to understand the grassroots problem and use our brain capacity and political will to make a difference, which Prof. Yunus did. If we have fantastic financial modeling, financial tools, etc., etc., but the farmers are struggling to make a living, that is an insult to the intelligence of so-called innovative people. So that is my take. Innovation is ability to make a difference to the stakeholders, to improve their socio-economic ability by using our capacity. The keyword is value creation to the right stakeholders and make it sustainable. Not for political mileage alone. Giving somebody withdrawal from EPF, that's not innovation. That's creating more problem for people even to die dignified. If someone lives more than 10 years after their retirement, many of them will even have problem for basic medical facilities in 20 years from now. For me, that's not innovation. That is just getting some political mileage. Thank you.
How do you assess the need for training?
Okay. This is interesting, yeah. I've been in the training business for last 34 years. You see, we build warship. The ship that we build, there are 69 crew members. I was the head of Marine Academy. If our training fail, we will bring body bags, literally. Right? Because at the sea, if there's a fire, we cannot be calling fire rescue department. We will be sinking with the ship. So training means your competency to get the job done. Not getting 4 flat or gold medal or achieving high impact training with all the what we call as smiley shit, like right after this you may be doing some evaluation, people give high score, then they say, wow, good conference. That's not. So how do you see evaluation of training? The New World Kirkpatrick model, we call that. There are 4 levels. Immediate is the reaction. The second level is learning, the fundamental knowledge. The most important, forgotten, 90% of organizations don't even have it. It's called change in behavior. Because the definition for learning is change for behavior. Ilmu tanpa amal, sia-sia. Ilmu bermaksud perubahan tingkah laku. Learning means change in behavior. And ultimately, the 4th level, answering Fairo's question, how do you see the measure of training? How does training bring result? If the training is only bring certificate, I call that intellectual obesity. You learn something, but you don't apply it. I hope I answered your question.
Perfectly. Yes. Cik Zamir.
Right. I love the term
Intellectual obesity,
That's awesome.
God, intellectual humility, intellectual
That's really
obesity. Aduh.
Okay. Anyway, Feroz asked me about understanding of potential technological applications at the top level, right? How can demand be generated if they don't understand? So this is where I feel like you need to be trained. You need to go out beyond this intellectual obesity point of view. I talked about, I demonstrated, we were a tech company. We showcase our technologies in the industrial metaverse and 3D simulation and so on. To, there was a guy from Accenture who came to our office and showed, I demonstrated our technology to them. And he immediately say, Zamir, I can tell you won't be successful in Malaysia. In Malaysia, our top management are held by finance people. And finance people, I'm in a full room of finance people, and it's all about dollar and cents, right? So if the CEO is a tech geek, then you'll get someone who would want to buy. If he's not a tech geek, if he's a CFO, if they have finance background, most probably it's going to be a very tough sell. So, this is a fundamental issue about wanting to change. If you feel that you have, as a leader, as a top people, talking about board members, the blockage, right, from the CEO, the board members, and so on and so forth. If there's a clarity or the importance of changing something for your company to be continuously being competitive, creating a lot more values for shareholders, for stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So the need for change is there. If you don't want to change, then unfortunately you'll stay there for a long time. So I'm glad to be able to share my experience here to finance people. For me is quite not my comfort zone. I'm always in the tech industry, so talking to finance people is not my comfort zone. So I'm happy to be here, and I learned a lot this couple of days about the finance, DFIs particularly. So I'm imploring that the change as a country, we need to innovate as a whole, create more demand for the GLCs and government agencies, create better supply from tech companies, awesome tech companies in Malaysia. And from there, we have loads of potential for finance, for growth for the country. So I hope that will happen. The next point that was asked to me was about Gen Zs, right? About loyalty, about job hopping. And I have experience in the past 2 years during the COVID pandemic, a lot of the Gen Zers were leaving. So I was mystified. We were giving everything that the books were telling me to do: give them freedom, give them trust, trust them to change, empower them. I was doing all those things. We have, if you come to my office, everyone is welcome to come to my office. It's not a typical engineering company. You go in there, it looks like Google-ish. We've got beanbags, we got PS5 there, we got all the VR, AR tech and things like that. So, we prepare all those things to create this, fun, but still people were leaving. So if you know the answer to that, Feroz, please let me know also, because I'm also mystified. Ultimately, people left. I now, when I employ my new guys, we look for a bit more matured. We are willing to spend a bit more to get people who wants to stay, who wants to prove themselves, and have a clear understanding of how they can create value for my company and for businesses of the business overall, right? And the other issue about
unemployment.
Yeah, unemployment due to innovation. I was in Indonesia. We have a company also in Indonesia, set up PT Innovim Indonesia back in 2016. We talked about tech over there, and one of the biggest no technologies over there is automation. In Indonesia, whenever you go and talk about automation, people will immediately
Seriously?
shut you out. Yeah. Because they have a massive
Unemployment issue.
Unemployment issues. They've got now a huge amount of Malaysia is only 10% of what Indonesia is, right? But technology and innovation is not just about automation. It's about how can we do things much faster, make decisions better, and from there we can make a lot more decisions in the same amount of time that we had before, right? So automation is, if we are talking about innovation, means reducing cost by creating these automated way of working and things like that. It's not the only way for innovation. So for me, yes, it is a big problem. Like my client Petronas is one of the biggest client. They're one of the most innovative companies in Malaysia. They are spending a lot on technology and things like that. I'm very proud to see our national oil company doing that. And they're doing remote operations. They're avoiding. They are removing people from their platforms and things like that. And there's a lot of drivers for that, for safety. There's a risk of explosions and so on and so forth. So they are bringing things back, but they are upskilling. They are also upskilling their staff. They are not, firing anyone. They are upskilling their staff.
So retraining and upskilling.
Upskilling.
But to do that, you need resources too. Yeah.
Well, we need people who understand at the top. So innovation, understanding at the top, telling people what needs to be done, and so on and so forth. So from there, you can have the drive to reduce your costs, but create new avenues for value creation and avoid firing a lot of people.
So it goes back to understanding at the top at various levels. For me, monopolies and white elephants and digital banking.
Yeah, the first question was with sectors lacking innovation.
Oh, lacking in innovation.
Yes, so I don't actually recall any specific sector which is behind the innovation, of course, but there is one commonality between all those institutions who are lacking innovation. So the first one is they're lacking corporate governance. They don't have proper business plans. And of course, they don't have a proper strategy, a corporate at board level as well. So that is the main thing. So and those institutions, you would see that all the products and services are being utilized somewhere else. So even if they have a sales force, they're not able to sell, so they are not able to generate any profit anymore. And that is even institutions lacking innovation, most of them maybe already disappeared, they cease to exist. And the ones still existing, if they persist in the way they are handling business, of course, they will be disappearing as well. So that is what I see mostly. And as I said, I mean, there is kind of a natural selection coming into play. So if those zombie companies, somehow, if they may call them, if they are not able to handle their business, then they will disappear. And some companies, someone who is more capable of handling that will be then replacing them. That is how nature works, of course. And the second question was, how do we regulate something which we don't know? Now, talking about innovation again, the regulatory aspect is always coming behind. So it is like just in the case of Bitcoin, for example, or digital money. I mean, we see something asymmetric is happening, and then regulators somehow would realize it, recognize it, and then they will come up with the regulation afterwards.
So after the fact.
Yeah, it's kind of like
after the damage.
Condition subsequent kind of action, of course. So because it is innovation, of course, and it is something very, very new. It is disruptive, and the regulators wouldn't know it. And of course, then that is why there is a lagging factor in terms of regulation and all the innovations.
How do we avoid white elephants, and how do we deal with monopolies?
The monopolies, yes. That is really hard to do, I mean, for the governments. So the monopolies, and talking about the big conglomerates, the monopolies, they are influencers. They can even influence sovereign policy. So
Countries' policies, yes.
yeah, that is the case. And even if there is, I mean, competition to some extent, then there is always a hostile takeover in the picture as well. So you will see that even if we try to solve the issue by creating competition, then there is always, in the end result, that those companies are becoming bigger through takeovers. And that is, I think, the issue for the forthcoming period. Yeah. And the last question, I believe, was with regards to the digital banking.
Mm-hmm.
So now, the digital banking, I've seen that licenses being given to a lot of banks nowadays in all countries, and also in Turkey, that I've also seen. So there are 5-6 licensing pending right now, but also here in Malaysia, as you have put it. But the thing with the digital banking industry is that I've seen, mostly they would argue that, I mean, they have lesser capex expenditure and OPEX as well. And due to the lower cost of funding, they will be able to benefit from a higher spread compared to the conventional industry, which I haven't seen yet. So in most cases, the digital banks, so they come up with a big idea, with a lot of excitement. But the end effect is mostly that I've seen there's an evaporation of their own capital, because at the outset they have a lot of investments, a lot of expenditures to be spent. But it is a trend, it is a start. That's what I see, and eventually digital banks somehow will replace the conventional banking industry moving forward.
Or you see it replacing?
And not now, of course, but there is a transition, of course.
Okay.
And so, of course, the way we've been conducting traditional conventional banking, of course, is still valid, because there is still a generation who would be enjoying the way they have been banking as of today. But of course, talking about the next generations, it is inevitable, I believe, that there is a replacement is to be taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Jaga.
Right, thank you. You asked about white elephant, and you quoted MySejahtera. I don't think MySejahtera is a white elephant. It's it has done its job, and it's supposed to go. It's at the end. There is no purpose for it to be around. And that's my view, personal view.
So what happens when the stakeholder doesn't know what to do with it?
Who
so
are the
they-
stakeholders here?
The Ministry of Health, because they're trying to extend it to different
No,
usages.
the thing is this, okay, here's where, in the name of innovation, here's where we need leaders to actually speak up and to look at things. Never allow a black box in any innovation that concerns public. My concern about when we come up with an app like that is that, how is that going to be beneficial to people? Where are the data going? That part was not addressed. And here we have people who work in Bank Negara, Maybank, and all that, going into locations. Every floor had a scanner. You scan, and the data is going somewhere. When you go to another place, you scan again, you check in, check out, and all. So we know exactly, not we, somebody knows exactly who has gone into which room in Bank Negara, how long they stayed there, what time they came out. Now, if anybody who have any ounce called intelligence will say that is ultra risky. So why did we allow that to happen? The problem is this. In the name of emergency, sometimes innovation happens. Here's the challenge. When you allow government to operate based on emergency and you give them green light to operate based on emergency, you will experience many emergencies. And here's where my challenge with this kind of apps is that the other thing is it was an app of discrimination as well, where you have to flash your app to go, why? I was born in Malaysia. I was not born in North Korea. In Malaysia, I can walk into any place. I do not have to show you my status to go anywhere I want. But now you put a layer on the grounds of safety that I need to show my status for me to enter a premise, and there is no science behind it. There is no science behind that whole thing. Pull out the science. Which science actually shows? Show me a research paper that actually shows that those who have different status do not transmit and all. So that's my.
But
take on that.
therein lies many of my questions to everyone here earlier. At what point does innovation does not come to the rescue? You know, at what point? And then when do you know when to regulate innovation? Like you said, anyone with a sense would have thought this through. Maybe we didn't have the capacity to think this through, because at that point, that innovation suited the moment.
Yeah.
But then after that moment left us, so we are that moment more wise, because that moment has left us. And suddenly we thought, oh yeah, we should have thought of this, but so sometimes it's not that it's not thought through. We didn't have that insight at that moment of creation. So hence the questions on regulation and how do you define innovation? How do you assess innovation? How do you measure innovation?
Well,
Et cetera. And when do you stop it being a white elephant?
Okay, I think the thing is this: go back to purpose of an innovation. And I think the purpose of innovation, it has to serve mankind. It has to serve for people. The byproduct of it could be profit. But it first has to serve purpose. But in this case, you're talking about at national level, there is no profit to that. It's about benefit to people. And I think it should be addressed in that sense, a benefit to people. And there is nothing wrong by having white elephant, because sometimes the purpose is already done, you know, so it's okay to have. I mean, you think about Google. What happened to Google Glass? White elephant. Do you know Apple long time ago came up with a Palm device? Not many people know. They came up with a Palm device with a stylus. It was a failed product. And that's why Steve Jobs said, God gave you 10 stylus. We are not going to put one stylus inside there. And they're still following that until now. Now, your next question, you talked about how to infuse innovation in a company. Now, infusing innovation in a company, and then that goes with the question about entrepreneur. You mentioned
Two models of entrepreneurs.
two models of entrepreneurs.
One where the leader knows what innovation is, but struggling to bring the rest of the organization with him or her. The other one where the leader is clueless of innovation, but the rest of the organization is crying out for innovation.
Okay, if a leader wants to innovate, but the team is not there to innovate, find new people.
Find what?
Find new people. Because sometimes innovation is in some people's DNA. They are just not in tune for that. You got to just find the interesting people to come in to bring in some new life to the organization. Now, when the the team wants to be innovative, entrepreneur does not want to move, find another job. You know, because no, the thing is this: you have a limited lifespan. I thought I just graduated from university. I'm 48 now. I don't know what happened to those years. It just got past. And sometimes I think we can give a little bit of face. We can actually do some level of convincing. But at the end of the day, if there is talent and we really want to use it, we have very little time left. And we need to do that. But what we can do is find mini projects within the organization. Projects that can slip under the radar of innovation, where budget is not too high or the area is not critical, because you want to keep yourself fresh as well. So I feel that way.
Okay, fantastic. Can I open it to the floor now? Anyone for questions before we close the panel and close for the day? Come on, there's still 60 people here. Can't be that bad. Questions on innovation? Anybody? No? Disappointed. Can I then pose a question to all of you before we close the panel then? What can each of you name an innovation that's gone wrong in your view? and why? In 1 minute each, if that's not too much to ask. Yeah. Major?
For me,
Innovation that did not come to the rescue, and why?
yep, easy payment system, yeah. Because it's maybe good for entrepreneur, but for me, for example, during MCO, my children can just order food with GrabPay. You know, I was born in a rubber estate. My parents were laborers. Getting 20 ringgit for a coffee, my mom can cook dinner for the entire family. For because of the easy payment system, they just order. And when I'm at home, the delivery, yeah, every other day there's something delivered. Of course, I got to take it, my responsibility. I can't blame the technology. But when payment becomes so easy, just swipe, just scan, that easiness is easy for spending money, create consumerism, but sometimes forgot the value. Let's remember the purpose of advertisement, yeah, is to enhance consumerism. So, but easy to spend, but people who are earning capacity is not improved. That is why with 3,000 or 4,000 ringgit, we call them poor. So I just want to remind all of us, just because of easy payment system, does it really enhance value for the stakeholder, especially the person who is paying? Thank you.
Fantastic. Cik Zami.
Okay, I think one of the questions that you posed earlier about why elephant projects and things like that, hindsight is always 2020 vision, right? I don't think there's ever any initiatives that was done that was intentionally done to be something to fail. Everyone initiates something to improve something. That is at the very least, the humanity side of things. I trust still in people wanting to do the right thing. Case in point, if you ask me, a failure would be the RFID toll system in Malaysia. It's supposed to make things better. I don't think it did. Is it a technology problem? I don't think so. I think it's a deployment problem. You're charging 35 ringgit and suddenly forcing everyone by closing the smart tag lanes and forcing everyone to use the RFIDs, but you're charging 35 ringgit for it, for a strip, which is, a few cents. I don't know. I mean, for me, the technology is not really a problem. The technology, well, you can say that it could have been done better. I mean, the technology could be a bit more efficient, things like that. But for me, the deployment was a problem. I don't have RFID until now. I'm looking forward to have that. The touch and go, NFC touch and go. I don't think anyone has that.
Touch and go?
The NFC touch and go, so we can just check our balance by tapping on our phone and things like that. It's always out of stock. Always.
Okay.
So, but the RFID technology wise, I think it could have been a game changer, but unfortunately the deployment was not done well. So for me, that to answer your question about a possible example, I think for me that was it.
Thank you. Fahmi? An innovation that has gone wrong, that did not come to the rescue.
Sure, it actually came to the destruction. So the first thing that crosses my mind is the investment banking and financial engineering based innovations that has led to the subprime crisis in the world. So that is one specific and very dominant example, I believe.
Fantastic. Chega?
I think I'll share the same sentiment as Femi. the subprime was highly intelligent people who tried to generate something beyond, engineer something beyond normal, and that caused a lot of problems. That's one thing I like about Islamic banking, is that you can't bull your way through. If it's not there, it's not there. If it's there, it's there. So I think that's the way I see an innovation that went wrong. It's a finance.
On that note, I really would like to thank the organizer at FIM for inviting me again to moderate. I really had fun moderating 4 panels the last couple of days. At FIM does do a lot of great work. And in closing, I just want a 1-sentence line from all of you on your aspirations for 2023 in the name of innovation. Jaga first.
I think stay interesting. Stay interesting is the word.
Stay
interesting. Interesting.
Stay interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay interesting, and that's the way forward.
For me?
How to say, so be proactive.
Be proactive.
I think it's all about innovation at the macro level. I still believe
Macro.
strongly on that. Thank you.
Yeah, being human is precious. Be useful.
On that note, thank you. And again, if there is anything that I did wrong, that's from me. Anything good is from my creator. And on that note, thank you very much. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you once again, Ms. Fairuz and our panelists, for such an inspiring and interesting discussion. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to invite Yang Berbahagia Encik Izwan Zainuddin, Chairman of ArtFilm, to deliver the memento to our moderator and panelists. Please welcome. Thank you once again. Congratulations and thank you to Encik Izwan. But before we left, please have the group photo session. Please show your memento to the camera. Thank you very much to the speakers and also to Encik Izwan once again. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next agenda of ArtFilm International CEO Forum 2023, I am pleased to invite on the stage Yang Berusaha, Encik Muhammad Prasad Hanif, Secretary General of ArtFilm, to deliver the closing remarks of ArtFilm International CEO Forum 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very, very good evening, everyone. How is everyone still holding up? It's Friday. It's Friday at 3 p.m. and I understand everybody's tired, right? It's been 2 days of, intellectual food, right? We're trying to avoid intellectual obesity, right? And we're trying to put in a little bit of intellectual humility, right? But at the same time, we would like to avoid intellectual fatigue as well, right? So I'll try to make my speech as short and sweet as possible, because as we end the program, we cannot deny the fact that there have been many people involved in making this program a success. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is with great pleasure that I deliver this closing address for the International CEO Forum 2023. On behalf of the Association of Development Finance Institutions Malaysia, ADFIM, ADFIMI, and Octus ESG, I would like to extend my deepest and sincerest appreciation to all of you for attending this conference. This event would not have been possible without your participation, support, and contributions. Without you, we'll be talking to tables and chairs. The theme of this conference, Unmasking Leadership in Times of Crisis, was chosen with great care and foresight. We live in a world that is constantly changing and evolving, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only accelerated this change. It is in times of crisis that true leadership is revealed, and I am confident that this conference has provided valuable insights and strategies for leadership in these challenging times. Therefore, I would like to express my gratitude to the Association of National Development Finance Institutions in member countries of the Islamic Development Bank, ADFIMI, and Octus ESG. A big round of applause for them for co-hosting this conference with ADFIM. They flew in from India and Turkey to help us co-host this, this conference. So fantastic support there. Their support and collaboration have been invaluable in making this event a success. I would also like to thank our sponsors. They gave us money, by the way, right? So we need to show them the appreciation. I would like to thank our sponsor, Perbadanan Usahawan Nasional Berhad, PUNB, Chief Executive Officers here. I would like to thank Sabah Credit Corporation. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Sabah Development Bank, right? They flew in an entire team, Sabah Credit Corporation, Sabah Development Bank. They flew in like 15 people, right? All the way over from Sabah to come attend this program. Fantastic. And I would like to extend our sincerest appreciation to more sponsors, Exim Bank Malaysia Berhad, Bank Rakyat, and SME Bank for their generous support and commitment to this conference. Thank you very much. Now, this conference, you have been seeing me on the stage. Actually, I'm the Secretary General of ADFIM. My only job is to stand on the stage and look very pretty, right? I don't do any of the things that people say that I do, right? The real team is back there. 4 of them, fantastic Secretariat. I would like to acknowledge the tireless efforts of the Secretariat led by Puan Teh Shuhaida as the lead conference producer there, the very beautiful one. And then assisted by Puan Azian Long for the delegates management. Cik Nur Syahira Mokhtar for finance and costing. I could never spend any money because of that. And Encik Muhammad Badri Osman for business development and marketing. They have been the pillars for the success of this entire conference. I just sit around and watch them do work, right? So their meticulous planning and hard work over the past 4 months have been instrumental in making this conference a success. I would also like to extend my appreciation to the leadership at ADFIM. As much as people complain about CEOs and boards, we are fortunate here at ADFIM to have a wonderful chairman and a wonderful leadership, a wonderful set of leadership at the council level who provided guidance and directions for this conference. Their vision and commitment to the development finance industry have been crucial in making this event a reality. Last, but never the least, I would like to thank all the delegates who attended this conference. Your participation, engagement, and commitment to knowledge sharing have been the cornerstone of today's event success. Now, most importantly, I would like to thank everyone who's still here, right, after 3 p.m. on a Friday evening, right? So that requires a huge applause for you, right? So as we conclude this conference, I would like to extend my best wishes to all of you. I hope that the insights and strategies shared during this event will be useful in your organizations and that it will continue to lead with resilience, agility, and creativity. Now, finally, I would also like to extend our sincerest invitation to you to join us at FIM on the 4th and 5th of October 2023. And if you are as passionate as we are in integrity and governance, join us in Kota Kinabalu to attend the National Conference on Integrity and Governance 2023. And let us make integrity and governance one of the main agenda of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to once again express my heartfelt appreciation to all of you for participating in this International CEO Forum 2023. Your commitment to knowledge sharing, collaboration, and leadership is what makes events like this possible. I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you again in future AdFIM programs. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And have a very good weekend, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Encik Muhammad Prasad. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big round of applause to AdFIM and also to the co-host of the International CEO Forum 2023. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this event. Let's together spurs the future growth of our business, industry, and also nation as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, take a good care to the international delegates. Please enjoy the rest of Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia before you fly home. My name is Zamir Asfar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and goodbye.